All right, so the first story at the top of antiwar.com today, President Biden expects U.S. troops to be killed in Iraq or Syria. So this is really something here. The New York Times reported on Sunday that President Biden and his top advisors worry that it's just a matter of time before an American soldier is killed in Iraq or Syria amid a flurry of rocket attacks against U.S. bases that are being launched by Shia militias, and these attacks started in response to Biden's full-throated support for the Israeli slaughter in Gaza. So U.S. officials suggested that if an American is killed, President Biden would attack Iran directly, which could provoke a major war, which would very, very likely provoke a huge war. Iran is allied with these Shia militias that have been taking credit for the attacks on U.S. troops, but Tehran has denied that it's involved in these operations, and these Shia militias are known to act independently. And back in October, we haven't seen them really comment on this recently, but when these attacks first started, the Pentagon said that it had no evidence Iran was directing these attacks. And a U.S. official told CNN that it was a persistent intelligence gap, sorry, I didn't really phrase that properly. The official said that whether or not the Shia militias act independently is a persistent intelligence gap, meaning they don't know if they're acting on Iran's, behest here. And again, they have their own interests. They really want the U.S. out of Iraq. That's all part of this as well. And by this logic that, these groups attacking the U.S. means the U.S. can bomb Iran, by that logic, Russia has every right to bomb NATO, to bomb the U.S. The media really plays right along with this whole way of looking at this. Whenever you see them talking about these attacks on U.S. troops in Iraq and Syria, or these militias, they say Iran-backed militias, Iranian-backed groups. And we see the same thing with the Houthis, the Iranian-backed Houthis. It's always in there in the Western media reports on the Houthis and these Shia militias inside the story, and a lot of times even in the headlines. That's like if every story we wrote was the U.S.-backed Ukrainians, the U.S.-backed Israelis. This report said that U.S. officials have been debating how to respond to the attacks and don't want to go so far that the conflict would escalate into a full-fledged war, particularly by striking Iran directly. However, if an American is killed, the U.S. officials say that they may have no choice but to attack Iran. The report reads, that is a red line that has not been crossed, but if the Iranian-backed militias ever have a day of better aim or better luck, it easily could be, end quote. And this New York Times report kind of framed it as, they would have no choice, even though the choice right now, the obvious choice would be to get out of Iraq and get out of Syria. You have the Iraqi government saying that they want the U.S. to leave. Biden thinks American troops are going to die. They're supposedly there to fight ISIS. Iraq says they can handle ISIS, no problem. It's very clear, what this is about, the whole point of this presence. And it's a tripwire for war with Iran. And so one thing, so this report is kind of vague. It doesn't really get into specific plans of what the U.S. might bomb in Iran. And it doesn't really, it's not really clear if they mean the U.S. would bomb Iranian territory or if they would kill Iranian military officers or troops that are in Syria and Iraq. We've seen, and they really just have military advisors there. And we've seen Israel recently, the airstrikes that they launched in Damascus over the weekend killed 5 members of Iran's Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps. And Israel seems like it's trying to provoke a war with Iran because they know the U.S. would definitely intervene directly in that. So this is a real chance here that this thing could escalate into a war between the U.S. and Iran. And there's no sign of anybody backing down. I saw today, I haven't been covering every attack on these U.S. bases because they happen, it seems like, almost every day. I saw today there was another one in Syria. And so far, no U.S. troops have been killed. About 70 have been injured. But they're just keeping them out there like sitting ducks, keeping them in harm's way. And it makes you think, are they trying to provoke a war with Iran? Is this actually what the U.S. wants as well?